Welcome, everyone, to the B2B Marketing Perspectives podcast. I'm Steve McDonald, your host. And today we have the privilege of having Denys Dubner on the call. And what makes Denys so incredible that we're going to want to learn from is Denys is actually the CEO of two companies. As if that probably wasn't enough, Denys, to be the CEO of one company, let alone two. I know in the past, you've also been the CMO of a company and accomplished many great things. Both of your companies operate internationally, all throughout Europe, all throughout the United States, all throughout the country and the world. So maybe if you could tell us a little bit about the companies that you're the CEO of and your background, and we'll get started that way.
Thanks, Steve. Thank you for having me. So the first company is a SaaS company called translate.com. That company helping others to go international through localizing their content with enhanced technology, doing things very fast and accurate. And the second company is called Wow 24/7, and that's the customer support outsourcing company, helping others to go also internationalize their business. So a German company entering into the Italian market or a French market, or the American company willing to serve their customers within the US in Spanish language. So we help them to communicate to their customers in more than 20 languages, really.
Fantastic. I mean, that's such a need for that. And I know that we talked a lot before and how easy you make that process. So we'll find a way for anybody that wants to talk to you at the end of this to follow you as well and get in touch with you. But I want to get into the meat of the subject matter here. And this series is all about what CEOs want from their CMOs. Could you shed some light on that? What are the priorities in your mind? As a two-time CEO, CEOs of both companies at the same time right now, what do you want from your CMOs?
Steve, I think we are all different as CEOs, right? Everyone is unique. I'm coming from marketing background. I used to be a CMO. So I'm probably not a typical CEO. Often CFOs become CEOs, right?
Yes.
CMOs, not that often, but it happens. So I think many CEOs want leads. They want sales, they want leads. They address the small percentage of their customer base and audience, potential customers, through paid ads and stuff like that, right? While a person, a CEO with a marketing background and someone who understands the importance of the content and addressing the rest of their audience, somebody who don't know you yet. So I think the magic is right there. So me as a CEO, I want brand awareness. I want people to trust us, like us, know us before they reach out to us. And I do not like to be in the position when we need to reach to someone who don't know us, don't trust us, don't like us. I don't like to be a faceless company approaching someone in cold. So yeah.
So you said a number of really important things there. Maybe break that down just a little bit. So I know that when we were talking before we were recording here, one of the very first things that you said was that I want my CMOs to know the customers and what happens when they know the customers versus when they don't know the customers and what the impact that is. Can you explain that a little bit?
Yeah. So when I was a CMO, that was for me, the biggest achievement in terms of growth within a very short period of time. So I was working for a company in the aesthetic medicine, in cosmetics and cosmetology. And basically within 1.5 years from top 20 company in the country, we became top 2 through really understanding the customer. But I was lucky when I joined the company, people within the company knew their customers so well. So they just needed a little bit of structure. So we started to do webinars, offline events. We became the best educator for them. We attracted the best coaches, the best doctors, everybody, the best, so they can learn. And that logs them in, So in the end, one there was funny comment from one of our largest customers. He said that if one of your competitors call us, we give them two names, your company and the largest company in the world in aesthetic medicine that patented every single thing that you know of. So they just say to the competitors, if you're one of those two, we'll talk to you. If you're not one of those two, I'm sorry. So, and that's the beauty of being valuable. And you can be valuable only if you know the customer. You don't even talk about your product. You just talk about something that worries them, that helps do their job better, entertain them, cry with them, smile with them, everything with them. But you've got to understand them.
You're talking about B2B buyers, right? And you're talking about educating, you're talking about building trust and building respect. And, how you do that. The last time that we spoke, you had just been on the phone all day with customers. When you came in as a CMO to that company, you said, all I did was talk to customers. It was interesting because I was just introduced to a gentleman who is in a private equity firm, deals with all B2B and all SaaS. And they take over these companies. And he said, the number one thing he does, he goes, I get on the phone and I'll call 20 customers. And the only reason why I do that is because I have to know how valuable this company is, right? And what you're doing is you're saying the same things. He's trying to understand the customers in order to understand the overall value of the company. You're trying to understand the customers in order to be able to market and project the value of the company, right? And so it makes sense from every angle. But one of the things that you said in there was that it was the kind of content that you were providing. One thing you didn't mention in there didn't seem to be in the world of feature benefit, right? It was, you were educating, right?
Yeah.
And you even said entertaining. Sounds to me like you're building a relationship as a consultant in the industry, as somebody that should be trusted, that what you say matters, you understand them, you understand their business, you understand the dynamics of the industry. So therefore, you're highly valuable to them beyond what the actual company itself does.
And therefore you build your brand equity.
Yes. Yes. I've been in brand strategy for a long time. I worked with the guy that went on to be the CMO of McDonald's and taught me how to do brand. And that's not usually a part of when you think about brand equity, right, is your expert status. But in the B2B world these days, especially where before they ever talk to somebody inside of a company, they've already done up to 70% of their research. They've usually determined in their own mind who they're going to talk to. So that content and that brand equity that you're talking about, would you agree that that's like that marketing is actually a much more important part of the sales process than it ever has been before?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. We are living in the world of internet. Everybody, sees things. The place is noisy right now.
Yeah.
It's much noisier than ever before. And, one touch doesn't work no more. So, I've seen the stats. So, before you need like probably 3 to 5 touches with your customer before you can sell to them. Right now, the stats are getting closer to 20.
Right.
Yeah.
Closer to
So
20 and across that omni-channel world, right? Like on so many different places, so many different levels.
Everywhere. And you've got to be consistent. And if you, again, coming back to knowing your customer, if you don't know your customer, there is no way you can be consistent for 20, 50, 100 touches before they'll like you and trust you and know you.
Right. Now, something else that you had said a little bit earlier that I just put into a mental, block to say, we got to come back to this is you said that traditionally CEOs want more leads.
Right? They still do.
but you have a different perspective on that. Tell us that perspective, please. it sounds a bit odd, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Of course, we still look at the number of MQLs and SQLs and everything, right? But I think the focus right now should be on the top of the funnel. You've got to build a relationship with those who don't know you, right? And you do this through content, you do this through many different ways, but if you can only address the bottom of the funnel, nothing is going to work. At least you're limiting yourself to a very slow growth.
So when you talk about, focusing on the top of the funnel, you're talking about 97, 98% of the people don't even know who you are, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
And why, one line of thought would say, I'm going to wait, I'm going to do some content, I'm going to see who fills out a form, and I'm going to, they're going to raise their hand in some way, and then I'm going to spend the vast majority of my time on that. Give us a little bit of the balance in terms of, your marketing resources and how you direct them in your companies to getting introduced and establishing relationships versus working on the MQL to an SQL to convert, if you wouldn't mind.
Yeah, sure. So at Translate.com, I just joined the company 2 months ago. So all I do right now is talk to customers. Because I do need to understand, because we have different ICPs, so many different profiles, and that's an issue too. So we are serving too many customers right now, and I do need to understand every single one to take the company strategically to the right direction right now. Okay, I'm just being honest.
Yeah.
So, and that takes time to understand. In general, like before, you've got to. It's really my personal opinion is that I can see that a lot in the past, and I talk to my friends CEOs all the time too, and they make their SMM manager, who is very young, not that experienced, creating content that seems great for them, but if your customer is a C-level B2B, then it may seem naive and not that helpful. Right, so you've got to have senior people on your team to become interesting. Yeah. So therefore, whether you outsource the content marketing or you build an in-house team, just take your time. Like really understand, build long funnels, allocate money to it, and become your audience's best friend. In this way, you can become very successful. You can grow really fast. Otherwise, again, coming back to the bottom of the funnel, things, I think like recently, Google Ads didn't work well for many companies. Something happened, don't know what happened. For many companies, it just didn't work. So I speak to my friends and a couple of agencies as well in the UK, and they said, our ads don't work. So we are not gonna hit the quota for sure. And then I go like, then why are you so dependent on the bottom of the funnel only? Right. Yeah. So
it makes sense. We want to think that if we talk about our products or our services, everybody's going to say, wow, I need that. And that's all I need to do. Right. That's like very old school way of thinking about it. Right. Mm-hmm. Because this day and age, and studies have proven this, that what a buyer, a B2B buyer, thinks about you in terms of your expertise and the trust and confidence in you is more important than what the company does itself. Yep. Because without that trust and confidence, you're not going to get this to the stage to talk about oh, hey, here's specifically what we can do for you, right? So what you're talking about seems like there's a shift of like the 80-20 of like most CEOs want their CMOs spending 80% of the time talking to customers about what they do, 20%, making that number up, but it's a good illustration kind of at the top of the funnel, right? And building that. But let's focus more on the hot leads, right? And the ones that we can talk to them about what we do. And am I hearing correctly that you want a much greater balance on that, or even
Yep.
a greater emphasis on the top of the funnel than the lower funnel?
Yes, I do. That's exactly what I mean. But also, I would like to add that um, when you address the top of the funnel to the right audience, you can go strategically into the direction that you like. And if you purely depend on the bottom of the funnel, then you just get the hot leads that need your services right now, but it doesn't mean they are ideal customer profile. So you've got to be within your ICP, within the industry that you like, within the company size that you like to sell to. And you don't even have to talk about what you do. Just talk about what they need.
And so what I'm hearing there is if you do that, you're going to attract an MQL that's much more qualified versus MQLs where you're trying to qualify, they're not in your right ICP. So therefore you're spending, your BDR team or sales team is spending way too much time with leads that they never should have. And
Absolutely.
the whole focus on the top of the funnel and adding value in the way that you're talking about it, helps ensure that you're going to get better quality MQLs as a result.
But also don't forget about the middle of the funnel.
Yes. Yes. Yes.
You've got to be strategic with it as well. And don't forget about the customer retention as well. So it's not just the top of the funnel. Everything is important.
Yes.
But what I'm saying is that if you don't focus, because many companies don't focus on the top of the funnel, they just think about the bottom of the funnel and then hopefully retaining their customers well. But what I'm saying is that you should definitely spend money on the top of the funnel and effort as well. But don't forget about the middle of the funnel. And so you have to be strategic about the whole journey.
And one thing that is going back a little bit to, you just said you've been spending the last 2 months because you've just joined this company, talking to customers. The first company when you joined, talk to customers. Mm-hmm. Is this something that should be in your recommendation, something that definitely as you're coming in new and you're educating yourself, but is this an ongoing thing? Do you ever stop talking to customers? I'm sure you wouldn't do it as much, right? Seems like that's the number one thing you're doing right now, but do you ever stop talking to customers? Or how?
I do it as much, Steve, at any point of time. Well, not as much, but still I do this a lot.
Yep.
It's not only me, but I also bring other people to the meetings with customers and the potential customers as well. Mm. I know that one specific segment of your audience is SaaS companies. And I see that a lot when they are product-driven companies where the development team says, hey, we have this beautiful feature. Everybody's going to like that.
Yep.
And they have not even talked to one customer. Yep. They just don't know. They think it's cool because they are nice, techie guys.
Yep.
But I always bring R&D guys to meeting with actual customers and potential customers and just people from the industry. And that way your product becomes so much more valuable so fast. I've seen this over and over and over again.
Let's talk about that a little bit more. When you say you bring others from the industry, R&D, you're talking about people that are outside of your company that you're bringing in?
I'm talking about inside. I'm talking about the inside because typically, the senior developer is never meeting anybody. But they still initiate the new ideas for the new feature, for new this and that.
Right.
And it's important so they meet the customers too, so they understand the way their customers think, what they need. And sometimes they realize that what they've developed and they've been developing for a while That nobody needs that. People need something else.
So you're helping them get that firsthand customer knowledge, because you could
Mhm.
translate for them, right? You're a translation company, one of them. You could translate what you've been hearing from the customers, but hearing it directly from the customers, so important. And it just seems to carry a lot of weight, right? Then you feel an affinity, you have a relationship with the customer versus a persona on a piece of paper or
Yep.
somebody that gets talked about. They're real, right?
Yep.
I love that.
Yeah,
Well,
and that inspires people within the company too.
yes, yes,
Marketing people and salespeople and C-level, they do speak to external world, right?
right,
The other divisions within the company, they don't do that much, right?
right.
And it's such a joy to be in the meeting and speak to the real person, to the real customer who uses what you do.
Yes.
And that's beautiful. We have this Zendesk application for the customer support managers. We started to bring in developers into those meetings with the actual users and potential buyers and hear their feedback. What you do this, you do that. And if you do that, that would be beautiful. So of course they get this information from marketing all the time. But when they get to meet to meet the person that actually uses this on a daily basis and compares to the competitors and so on and so forth, and they become so much more motivated.
Oh, 100%. They feel, I'm sure they feel empowered. They feel like they actually have a connection.
Yep,
I imagine it impacts everything they do in their jobs. Let me
absolutely.
let me ask something earlier when you were talking about building brand equity, building value, building trust, building respect, and that you do that through content. I always ask everybody the same question on our podcast: to rate the importance of content on a scale of 1 to 10, where 1 is not important to the success of the company at all. 10, it's vitally important to the success of the company. How would you rate it and why?
It's a definite 10 for me, but don't do it too early. Think about it well. Really understand. Make sure that you know your customer first. If you don't do it. That you could invite the potential customer. You can speak about the other things. Don't even talk about your own product. So learn from them. You could record it, but many people don't want to do that. They want to learn first without showing this whole process to the external world. And I think it's okay to do that way as well. Just interview your customers and record it, and then put it out as well. That's also valuable.
I remember from our previous conversation that you had talked about that it almost took a year in one of the companies that you were involved
Yep.
with to really understand the customer to the point where you felt like marketing was then starting to hit its stride.
That's correct, Steve. Yes. So I graduated from the Swiss executive business school, and it's 90% planning, 10% execution. So I'm like, I like the Swiss precision in a sense, right? So I would rather, I'm more conservative. I would like to be prepared first, and then go out into the market, and then make it a success.
Well, from all of your background and the conversation that we've just had here, if there was a takeaway that you wanted the audience to remember above all else, what would that be?
As a CEO, understand your customer yourself. Don't rely on anybody else in the company. Just also speak to customers all the time. Spend money on the top of the funnel. Do it well. Be organic. Be someone who people can like, know, and trust and respect, because you're valuable to their life, not because of your solution, but because you're part of their community.
Now, the second part to that is, since this is a series on what do CEOs want from their CMOs, what's the one word of advice or soundbite of advice that you want to give CMOs, B2B CMOs?
Ooh, don't burn out. It's a stressful job.
Yeah.
You've got to jiggle so many balls at the same time. So it's one of the most difficult jobs, I think, on the C-level. Like really, there are so many things going on at the same time. So many things don't go right at the same time. So you've got to have a thick skin on the one hand, and on the other hand, you've got to be empathic and help the team to be even more valuable to your target audience, and make sure your CFO understands the importance of the top of the funnel. That's my advice.
Well, I believe 100% when you say you've got CMOs, you've got a really tough job and they don't last very long. We did a whole series on why do B2B CMOs fail so quickly. It's actually proven they last half as long as CEOs. They have the shortest tenure of all the C-suite. So I agree 100%. Well, Denys, thank you so much for coming in and sharing this. If anybody wanted to get a hold of you and ask a follow-up question, what would be the best way? Is it LinkedIn, or how can we?
Yeah, just hit me out on LinkedIn.
Fantastic. We'll do that. We'll put a link into all of this as it goes up online. And thank you very much. Words of wisdom that we all needed to hear.
Thank you, Steve. It's a pleasure to be here.